Are you starting a podcast for your business and you can't decide between whether you should start a video podcast or just do audio only? Well, if that's what you're struggling with, then hopefully this video will give you a little bit more of clarity in which one will probably be a better fit for your journey. I'm going to share some pros and cons on both, so that way it'll help you make a decision in reference to which one you want to do. Of course, my name is Lashawnda, and if you're new, hey girl. And if you are a returning subscriber, welcome back. I'm a content creator and content strategist, and I help you with all things YouTube and podcasting. So let's go ahead and hop right into the pros of doing a video podcast. Now, I have had both, and I am actually going to audio only, and I'm going to share a little bit more of why later on in the video. But let's talk about the pros that comes with you starting a video podcast right out the gate. So for one, this is a really great option if you are in the process of building up your audience. So maybe you just started your business, or maybe your business just doesn't have a lot of visibility and you're looking to start building your brand online and you are looking to grow your audience right now. So you have a very small audience and your goal with the podcast is to build a community and audience around your personal brand and business. Then doing a video podcast is going to be a great option because it is the easiest way to increase visibility for your product and for your brand. Okay, so let's start right there. There's so much more that you can do when it comes to marketing a video podcast because now you have all of the social media platforms as your resource to be able to increase visibility as well as YouTube. So when you think about the audience size that's on a platform like YouTube, as well as your audience size on platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and maybe even Facebook, depending on what kind of content you're going to be promoting and marketing as a part of your podcast, then doing little snippets of videos for your podcast will be a great way to drive organic traffic to your podcast. Also, another pro to doing a video podcast is that you can diversify your revenue streams and your viewership. So let's talk about the revenue streams for a second. When you're doing a video podcast, you're also giving the opportunity for you to get ad revenue through your YouTube channel. If you are in a creator program for TikTok or Instagram, they have like the creator fund, which I ain't saying that you make a lot on there, but you are diversifying your income streams with adding that video element, especially specifically on YouTube. So if you're leaning towards video podcasting specifically for YouTube, some of the benefits with the revenue streams on there is not only can you put your full podcast episode on there, but you can also break them up into mini clips. So maybe your podcast is an hour, maybe it's 30 minutes. You can put that full episode on there, but then you can break those down into 5-10 minute segments to kind of bring new people that aren't aware of your podcast over to there. And then you can kind of link for them to watch your full episode on YouTube as well. So now you're creating more opportunities for you to bring in ad revenue and increase your revenue streams in that way alone. And when it comes to diversifying your viewership, maybe your audience prefers to watch your podcast. Maybe you have a really aesthetically pleasing podcast when it comes to video. I know some people go all in when it comes to the production element for their video. And I also know for me, I prefer to watch some podcasts like Social Proof, Ghetto CEO, and there's a couple other ones that I prefer to actually watch the podcast versus listening to it in audio format. So maybe that's a direction that you're interested in and you want to kind of you want to cross-pollinate between the two where they can either listen or they can watch. Then doing a video podcast is going to be great. Now, all of that sounds great, but I do want to give you a major con of doing video podcasting. And I feel like this may be what's causing your hesitation. And that is it requires a lot more production. When it comes to the production of a video podcast, it can be a lot and it can be overwhelming if you're not prepared, because now you're not just sitting down in front of a mic and just recording an audio podcast. You have to also make sure and be mindful of the visual element that you're including with your podcast. So this may require for you to create a whole new setup so that way it can be aesthetically pleasing whenever you're doing your podcast. But this also adds the element of editing. So maybe you only wanted to just do your audio only podcast and you don't have to do a lot of edits and post-production for that. But with a video podcast, you're going to have to do some editing. Okay, especially if you're talking about doing snippets and including clips and then breaking those up into TikToks and Reels and then all the things that comes with doing video, you have to take all of that into consideration when it comes to promoting and pursuing video podcasting. I will say it is not for someone who is brand new to creating content. If you are brand new to creating content, then video podcasting may be something you want to step into in the future. But if you're already familiar with creating content in general, you're already familiar with video, and you feel that you can really do that, or maybe you're delegating the back end work when it comes to your video production, then maybe you can go all in. I want to add to this con as well. Another con in reference to doing video podcasting when it comes to production is that you have to show up presentable. And it's funny to say, but when you really think about it, like if I was not recording this video right here, I would not have my wig on. I would not be dressed up. I would probably have my like downtime clothes on and I would just be pumping out an audio only podcast. But when you are introducing a video podcast to your platform and planning on pursuing that, you have to show up visually to make sure that you're presentable for each episode. And that's one of the major reasons why I am removing the video element from my podcast, because for me, it feels a lot more natural when I am doing audio only. And I already have a platform like this YouTube channel for the video portion of content. But I ain't gonna go into too much detail because again, I'm gonna talk about that a little bit later. But that's a major con when it comes to video podcasting. Now let's scoot on over to audio only. Let's talk about the pros when it comes to pursuing audio only. First of all, it is so much easier to produce an audio only podcast. I kind of skirted over it a little bit earlier where you literally can just pull up your mic and just record. That's it. The only thing you really need is your podcast mic and whatever software you're using to record your podcast. I know for me, what I'm recording with this right now, I'm using a software called Audacity. It's a free software that you download to your computer. And literally, I feel that with audio only, if you are looking for something that's easy for you to add into your marketing, audio only is the way to go. Okay, especially if you have the gift of gab and you can talk like me, audio only is going to be so easy for you to produce because you already have a lot to say and it comes out a lot more naturally when you don't have to worry about the video element. The second pro to doing audio only is the fact that you are catering to a specific audience and you are catering to the audio experience. And this is going to increase the quality of your podcast. So I know that even though people's intentions are good, a lot of the times I see people do a video podcast and they don't take into consideration the people that are only listening. So they'll be showing stuff on video or talking about things that happen on the video. And if you're listening to it in audio, we don't know what you're talking about. Like we can't see it. And so it kind of makes you feel like as an audience or as a listener that you're missing out on something and you have to go to the video podcast to kind of see what they're talking about, or you just miss out and you just don't see it. And so because you are honing in on catering to that audio experience, you're going to make sure that everything is specifically for that audio experience and you don't have to worry about kind of making that viewer or that listener feel left out, or not only just that, like sometimes I think that people don't take into consideration that everyone's not looking at their podcast. So certain things may happen and it just doesn't resonate in audio format. That's the only way I know how to explain it. But doing audio only, you're creating a more intimate experience for your listeners. And again, it's so much easier to produce. So that way you're going to be creating a higher quality podcast all around. Now let's talk about the con that comes with doing an audio only podcast. Normally, if you are going audio only, you're going to already need to have an audience that you are going to be marketing this podcast to. It is a lot harder to market and get viewers when you are doing audio only, solely because all of these social media platforms are really either written based or catering towards video. So you don't really have the opportunity to put audio clips to promote your podcast. And I know some people use like the graphics with the audio waves or whatever to kind of showcase their audio, but I still feel that that doesn't really do enough to get new people over there. Normally they're doing that in their stories or with their existing audience to remind them of the podcast. But a lot of the times, if you're going audio only, you better be prepared to be marketing and having an existing audience that you are marketing that podcast to, because it is going to grow contingent on how much you're marketing and how much you're growing your audience in other aspects. So just keep that in mind. Video, if you are starting brand new with your audience and you are looking to build an audience organically through your podcast. Audio only, if you already have an established audience and you're just going to continue to build this. Maybe you're doing speaking engagements already. You're already kind of expanding your audience in other avenues. Then audio only is definitely an option. I would not recommend you do audio only if you do not have a marketing plan to expand your audience in other avenues. Just my 2 cents. Now I'm going to just kind of wrap up with my ending thoughts to kind of help you seal the deal in reference to doing video or audio. My biggest recommendation for you is do what feels sustainable. Do what feels sustainable and do what feels easiest, because you don't want to start a podcast. A lot of people will start a podcast, do their first 4 episodes, and then just fall off the face of the earth. So you really want to make sure that when you're going into this, do a practice run in reference to video and audio only for your podcast if you're just getting started. If you want to know more about what I'm talking about in reference to that, I'm going to link the video on how to start your podcast up here, so that way you can kind of get a more understanding of what you need to do when you're deciding on video or audio, because I recommend you practice with both. Practice and see which one feels better, and then just kind of go from there. And then I also want to share kind of what I'm doing moving forward with my podcast. So I have a podcast called the Create Her Legacy podcast. I'm actually in the process of relaunching that for Q3. I don't know if it will be launched by the time you see this video, but I will link it below so that way you can check it out. I launched this podcast with video, and don't get me wrong, like I have a YouTube channel for it. I was doing the videos. I created the clips, even though I ain't never posted clips, because girl, I have the video clips from my episodes, and I never posted it because, like I said, I'm pursuing this YouTube channel. I also have a couples channel with my fiance, and it was just a lot. It was just a lot of content, video content that I was trying to keep up with. And so I made the decision to kind of pull back from doing the video podcast and do audio only, simply because I want to focus on creating an audio experience and creating that more intimate experience. And I also know that for me, it's going to be more sustainable for me to just pump out audio only podcast episodes, because now I'm not at the mercy of having to get dressed, having to put on all of this, get my ring light, get all of this stuff set up. I already have enough of that with my main channel and then with the couples podcast channel as well. So I just figured that this would be easier for me personally, and it makes the most sense based on where I am in my business and what my goals are right now. Always remember that you can always add video later to your podcast. That is what I plan on doing. So although I'm doing audio only right now with my podcast moving forward, I do plan on adding video back once I get to a better place where I can delegate the production behind the scenes of my podcast. And I also plan to actually have an official setup for the podcast in video format, so that way if I want to do interviews, it's going to be in-person interviews, not virtual interviews. And I have my vision for when I do go back to video podcasting. I have an idea and vision for what I want that to look like, and I ain't gonna be doing the editing. Okay, so I'm gonna wrap this video up right here. If you've made it this far, then I hope that this was helpful for you. Definitely let me know your questions in the comments if you have additional questions about podcasting or getting started in general. And I would definitely recommend you join my new Facebook community. It's called the Create Her Legacy community. It is perfect for women entrepreneurs like you who are pursuing YouTube and podcasting for their business. We're going to have all types of resources available for getting you started with podcasting. You're also going to get the opportunity to connect with other women podcasters who are also in this space and starting out, or maybe they're looking for guests to be on their podcast. And we will be doing virtual events inside for meet and greets, virtual networking events, workshops, and all the things. The group in the community is free, so you have no reason not to get signed up. So go ahead and do that, and I can't wait to see you in there. See you in the next video. Bye.